recording.
Okay.
We are now recording.
Okay. We'll call to order the Lowell City Council work session for Tuesday, April 6th at 7:05. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Stratus,
Present.
Councilor Drott,
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
All city councilors are present.
Okay, we're all here. Good. Tonight we have Sean Myers in the building with us. We also have Sean Watson with us. On the computer making presentation will be Andy Vobora with Travel Lane County, and also Becky Taylor and her friend Carrie Westwood, I think the name, and they're supporting or with Lane County Transportation, and they'll be making a presentation later on. And also we have Dean Ray with the Highway 58 reporter. So we have a full house computer-wise. Okay, tonight's work session, we'll start off with a presentation update from Andy, VP Stakeholder Relations, Travel Lane County. Mr. Cottle, you want to introduce this?
Yes, so the city of Lowell is a member of Travel Lane County, and periodically representatives from that organization like to check in and give a presentation on what their organization has been up to. Joining us tonight is Andy Vobora, VP of Stakeholder Relations, for a presentation. Andy, do you have anything that you need me to pull up on the screen?
If you could allow me to share my screen, I'll just rip through some slides and answer any questions folks have.
Okay.
All right, I think we're set. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And the Carrie Westland is not with us tonight. She's our president and CEO, and she is the holder of our account on Zoom. So every time we log in, we have to change our name. So that's why her name popped up. So she won't be with us tonight. It'll just be me, and I'm happy to give you an update on who Travel Lane County is and some of the things that have been going on over this past year. One of the things I always like to start with is Travel Lane County is a name. We market the region as the Eugene Cascades and Coast Regions. You might hear that out in the marketplace. We are a 501c6, so the same as a Chamber of Commerce, a professional not-for-profit membership-based organization. And pre-COVID, we had over 600 member partners like the city of Lowell. So always want to kind of preface things by that. We have a grant agreement with the county to do destination marketing for the region. So pre-COVID, we were on quite a roll. After the Great Recession, we had 10 straight years of growth in the travel and tourism industry in Lane County and in the state of Oregon. As a state, we were over $12 billion in visitor spending. And in Lane County, we had our second year in 2019 of over $1 billion in visitor spending, with 783 million of that direct visitor spending. So the rest of it is you and I moving around the county or going outside the county on travel. So big business supports a lot of jobs in Lane County. What we'd like to see is how that money spreads around the county. And a lot of people think when visitors come here for leisure travel, for sports or conventions, that the hotel or lodging industry is kind of the big winner. Well, in fact, it's really, as you can see by this chart, it's packaged food and restaurants and other food source. What's common when people are traveling is they've got to eat. So whether they're staying with you or me, or they're staying in commercial lodging, they're going to eat something and drink something. So food and beverage is almost 40 cents on every visitor dollar spent in Lane County. But as you can see, it also translates into big retail spending, arts and entertainment's almost $100 million a year, and down the line. Well, what did the pandemic do? Well, this is a chart. I think you might have been provided a link or given our semi-annual report that we gave to the Board of Commissioners here a few weeks back. But we saw a drop in the first half of the year of about $2 million in room tax receipts. And that's where we get our money to do our work, and all of the cities and around the county benefit from room tax receipts. So you can see there we were down about $2 million, or roughly about 30% at mid-year. We don't expect it to get a lot better in the second half of the fiscal year, which ends June 30th. We did predict that, it would get really pretty good in May and June as Hayward Field was reactivated, but without the ability to host fans in the stadium, we're probably not going to see the projections come up to what we anticipated, but we can talk more about that a little bit later. So I want to just provide this chart to give you a kind of the large sense of how destination marketing happens throughout the state. Travel Oregon is a state agency created by the legislature. It's funded by a portion of the room tax. It's dedicated to the state, 1.5% of the room tax that we all pay when we stay at commercial lodging in Oregon goes to Travel Oregon to fund their programs, and 7 regional programs. The state is broken into 7 regions. We overlap 2 of those regions, the Willamette Valley region and the coast. And then you get down to destination marketing organizations like Travel Lane County, Visit Salem, Visit Bend, Visit Southern Oregon, that market regions. And so our region is Lane County. We have reciprocal memberships or partnerships with all of our chambers of commerce in the county. And that's really important because oftentimes the Chamber of Commerce is that first line of contact with visitors who are coming into a region. And so that's very important to us. And then you have our business partners that provide the experiences that our visitors have here when they're in market and have a great experience here. And so that all of those work together, we are able to push information about activities, our businesses, what's happening in our region, up to our regional partners and up to the state to broadcast that out through their channels to other markets and really kind of amplify information about what's happening in our area in the hopes of attracting visitors. How we attract visitors and who we target, it really falls into these 3 areas: leisure and tourism, so people going on vacation, conventions and meetings, and sports. And the targets there are not the attendees of the convention or the participants in sports, but rather the planners. We go after the planners who are planning to bring meetings to different locations throughout the United States and the world, or sporting events throughout the United States or the world, and try to get them to come to Lane County if it's a good fit for them. Now, leisure travel is one where we market directly to the consumer and try to get them to come into the region and spend their leisure travel time with us. And we have typically about roughly 5 to 7 million visitors that are coming through Lane County in a typical year. Many of those are about roughly 3 million are day visitors. So they're coming from close by drive markets within the region, and then you have overnight travelers. Well, 2020 was anything but normal. The pandemic really changed how everybody's done their stuff, their work. And the travel and tourism industry, as you can imagine, has been hit probably harder than any other industry in the country. The numbers are simply staggering in terms of the loss of businesses and the number of employees who are still unemployed. And so when that happened, we really pivoted. We couldn't be marketing to bring people here because travel was shut down. Everything was shut down. And so we really looked at what we could do to support our business partners. And we came up with a campaign called Love Lane County. And the goals of that campaign were to foster pride in our community, to let locals know how they could support local business, because we were all kind of stuck here at home. So how are we going to support local business? And then keep Lane County top of mind so that as travel began to open up, we wanted people to be thinking about Lane County as a destination for travel. So what did we do? Created a lot of assets. logos that people could use. Businesses could use these social media tiles that we made available to all of our partners. We did a lot of Zoom backgrounds because we're all doing these meetings. So we wanted to provide some Zoom backgrounds of iconic places around the county. And we really pushed local businesses in our social media channels. Again, we weren't doing any paid media. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we kind of market the region and who our consumers are, how far out and far and wide we advertise. But it all became kind of locally based and, support local. Let's keep our local businesses strong so that when travel happens again and visitors come back, we've got all of our business partners still healthy and strong. So a lot of local advertising, a lot of, again, this idea around future trip planning. Again, when it's safe to travel, we want you to come to Lane County. Well, as we got into last summer and fall, things did open up. Case counts went down. Things started to open up a little bit, and we did see leisure travelers around, and it was very interesting around the state, like Central Oregon, the Gorge, the Oregon coast had really normal years. There were a lot of leisure travelers out traveling around. The areas that got hurt the most were really the metro areas that rely on mass gatherings. Those are those conventions and sporting events that just haven't happened with fans in the stands or people in the concert halls and et cetera, festivals and things like that. And as things opened up, we developed another campaign that we called Instilling Confidence in Travel. And we talked really a lot with local chambers of commerce, local civic leaders about how comfortable were the local residents feeling about travelers or leisure folks coming back into their communities and staying there, when COVID was all new to us and there was all, issues around the concern around hospitals getting overrun, et cetera. And we did see some of the issues, obviously, with, grocery stores running out of toilet paper or whatever it might be. So we wanted to be sure locals were comfortable with visitors coming back. We wanted with visitors, though, to also feel safe that those businesses that they were going to come visit when they were on their travel, that they were following the protocols and going to take care of them as well. And we wanted to also ensure that businesses really understood the protocols. Things were changing really fast, being kind of made up on the fly as the state tried to understand COVID, and everybody tried to do their best to instill these safety protocols that we all got used to following. So we created some video PSAs that talked about that featured primarily restaurants and lodging and how they were responding to the protocols and being sure that restaurant or patrons would be safe coming into the restaurants or going to the hotels. And that kind of followed through in all of our blog writing that we could link back to and all of our social media channels. So again, really highlighting that it was safe to travel. And these are all the great things that our restaurants and lodging partners, attractions, and other members were doing to keep people safe. As the summer went on, we developed a leisure recovery campaign. Things were starting to really build. We were having some really good successes. And what we wanted to do is really try to start to drive demand a little bit more because our businesses were hurting. And we wanted to try to get a little bit more demand out there for them while still following the safety protocols. We had weekly meetings with the Lane County Health Department. So we wanted to be in concert with them and not get out ahead of them, but also try to drive business as much as we possibly could. So we developed this In the Moment series, which we continue to use and will continue to use into the future, highlighting communities around the county, showing some of the iconic trip motivators like here in Oak Ridge, West Fur with mountain biking, some metro area things. Again, it was late summer, it was hot, getting out, doing a staycation at a local hotel and getting in the pool was an option for people as we were encouraged to stay local. And then as we got into holidays, again, how to plan for safe holidays. And then the holiday farm fire happened. And all of our paid advertising again came to a halt. And following that, we had an uptick in COVID. And so we were shut down again in terms of getting messaging out to potential travelers. As we kind of moved past that, we continued with this staycation campaign, which really was very successful. These are some numbers just for 1 month in late fall. You can see 320,000 impressions through our social channels in a 1 month period with almost 4,000 people clicking through to our staycation landing pages. So that was really successful. We could tell people were paying attention, doing their best to listen to the advice around staying close to home. And we were giving them options to do that and support our local businesses. We also did a really strong campaign around Shop Local around the holidays. Again, you can see this was a big campaign, 335,000 people reached with over 700,000 impressions, over 16,000 people clicking through to our landing page, and then 3,000 to the events and deals that our partners were providing. So these were discounts at hotels, restaurants, packages that we put together to provide people opportunities to get out and about and support local over the holidays. So we've kept everything really tight in terms of our marketing as we've been able to do that. And now we're just, with the case counts going down, we're starting to broaden that out, and we'll continue to use that in this Moment series to market to a one-day drive market, which is, Boise, Idaho. Portland's actually a big market for us to target with advertising, but all the way up to Spokane. So anywhere you can get in one day's drive, and then all of our direct flight markets out of the Eugene Airport. That's kind of the sphere where we market our leisure travel to. And as I said earlier, our marketing to conventions and sports is to the planners who are planning events there. And I'm happy to talk more about that if you have any questions. Wanted to focus lastly just on a little bit of the content that involves Lowell. We try to wrap in all of our communities around the county. It's a big county. It's bigger than the state of Connecticut. But we love all of our cities, and we try to include everybody. And we always encourage you to take a look at in the regions and cities section of our website. There's a profile on Lowell. If you look at that and you say, man, you're really missing something here, we want to hear about that, because we have content writers, always refreshing content, and we try to stay on top of stuff, but we might miss something. So we want you to look at that and let us know if we're missing something. But I just pulled out, a few things that our content writers have been focusing on in terms of our blog writing. So a lot of road trip itineraries for people, again, traveling around the county. Lowell's mentioned in a number of these, some trips, again, up to Oak Ridge, up to the Cascade Mountains, a Highway 58 road trip to Crater Lake that also mentions stopping by Lowell. A blog on movies in the region, on covered bridges, on summer swimming holes. So again, we try to create itineraries for people to get out and enjoy the natural beauty of our region, and we can then pull in strands of what particular communities have to offer. Your landing page on our website saw just over 3,000 page views, over 2,600 unique page views. So that's unique individuals looking at your page information. And this is consistent with all of our communities. Things to do is typically the highest number of things. The landing page itself, Lowell, is the highest, but then things to do, people drill down into, and then events are always the highest on every community. Just to quickly talk about a couple of things that might be coming our way. The Pac-12 rowing championships is getting displaced out of California because of COVID. And so we're bidding on that and hoping to bring that to Dexter Reservoir. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. Should hear pretty soon about that. Obviously, you've had some great, events that you've held in the past that have been affected by COVID. We're hoping to see those kind of things come back. We're just kind of keeping our fingers crossed. We're coming out of it, but as you might have seen today, Lane County's ticking back up. We're looking at possibly going back into the moderate risk category. So we've got a couple-week reprieve to try to get those numbers back down. All of those things are affecting whether or not we can host events, have people in the stands at events, et cetera. But you guys have had some great iconic events out there that we'd like to see happen again. I threw in disc golf here just because it's an interesting one. Just there's a number of great disc golf courses that have popped up around the county, and we're really looking at leveraging that for some big sporting events where we can bring in disc golf tournaments. So you've got the new one up in Oak Ridge, you've got the one near you guys. We've got one down in Cottage Grove. We got them in Eugene. There's one in Florence that's been developed. So we can create some real opportunities for the disc golf world to bring tournaments here. So those are the kind of things that our sports team is always looking at the Sports Commission is, what's new, what's upcoming, what are the things that fit well for our region that we can really leverage. I'll mention just the World Athletics Championships. We could talk specifically about, Hayward Field and the activation with the college track meets and the Olympic trials this summer, but pointing to next year when things really should be back to normal and we could really hopefully get full stands again. The World Athletics Championships was delayed till next July in 22. That's a big one, 214 federations from around the world, thousands of athletes. And we anticipate lots of folks from around the country to come to that. Probably the international market coming to that may still be in flux, but we'll fill the stands for that one. And one of the key things they're looking for, because we don't have enough lodging accommodations in the region, are RV sites. So if you guys feel like you've got a great place to say, hey, we can be a great RV site, supply opportunities for people to park their RVs and then travel into the track meet for the day, that's something we'd like to hear about. So lots more to talk about that. There's a group that's just starting to meet to really roll out how folks can get more involved with the World Athletics Championship. So I'm going to stop there because I know you have a full agenda and I've talked super fast, but I'm happy to entertain some questions. I'll stop sharing my screen and let you guys ask me some questions.
Anyone?
All right, I've overwhelmed you.
Are you the Andy Vabora from the University of Oregon Ducks, linebacker from 79 to 81?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You got a pretty good memory there, Tim. Yes, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too.
Yeah, sorry, the
Okay.
other night on TV doing a presentation, so good to see you twice in a week.
Okay. Well, thank you. And we're available anytime. Happy to come back, chat with you. If you have any questions, happy to throw my contact information here. And I don't know if the chat's available. Yep, looks like it is. I can throw that in there. And then I'll probably throw a couple of other things in here. If you haven't seen, there's a couple of really good videos on the new Hayward Field. It's a spectacular facility, world class. I mean, top in the world in terms of track and field. I've been a track official and a volunteer for over 30 years. And to see this new facility is just amazing. And it's going to pay dividends for our region for decades to come. So I'll throw my contact info in there, maybe a couple other links, and feel free to reach out anytime if you have any questions.
Very good. Thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Point. If not, we'll go on to item number 2, presentation update from Becky Taylor, Senior Transportation with Lane County Public Works regarding our safe routes to school. Mr. Call, you want to introduce this?
Lane County Public Works has obtained grant funding for the Safe Routes to School project. Becky Taylor, the Senior Transportation Planner with Lane County Public Works, is a part of that project management team. They are beginning the public outreach and information stage of the project to gather information that will inform the actual design of the project. And Becky, I'm sure, will go into more detail on that. And she has a presentation as well. And Becky, I can pull that up or let you pull that up on your end like the previous presenter just did, whichever you prefer.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett and councilors and Jeremy. I will attempt to share my screen and show my PowerPoint. Are you able to see that?
Not yet.
We see you.
Not yet. Let's see. How about now?
It's starting to come up. There we go.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me to present to you this evening. I'm very excited about this project, and Lane County is so happy to be able to support the city of Lowell. It's amazing the things that you've been able to accomplish as a small city, and just wanted to be here tonight to let you know that Lane County supports you and wants to continue to support you and recognizes the excellent work that the city of Lowell is doing. This is a little, I don't know if you can see on the screen, this little photograph of a couple years ago. It's kind of an I Spy game. See if you can see me in the crowd, but this project began through an identification process a couple of years ago through your downtown plan update process. I spent a Saturday walking your city with the project team working on the update to your master plan for your downtown. And I have to say, I was just really embarrassed about the condition of the Lane County roads through your downtown, just the insufficient walking infrastructure. And of course, as we all know, funding for sidewalk construction is very limited. And typically construction is built at the expense of abutting property owners. And we just knew that it wouldn't be affordable that way. And so I took note of all of the improvements that the city wanted through the master plan on county facilities. And I've been keeping track of that. I'm the senior transportation planner for Lane County. So it's my job to identify what the transportation needs are and to try to secure funding and make it happen. And so if you ever have questions about this project or others, please feel free to reach out to me. I meet with Mayor Bennett on a monthly basis as part of his representation on the Lane Area Commission on Transportation. So he's really well connected with what's happening on the transportation system regionally. And I will say it's kind of an exciting time for transportation because it's really recognized as a way to support communities and reinvigorate our economy through transportation investments. And so if you've watched what's happening even at the federal level of transportation bills on the horizon and more funding coming for transportation to infuse our economy. So I'm very hopeful. And I think all of the preparatory work that Lowell has done in terms of identifying its needs and priorities is really going to serve you. And I'm here to help. So this project is a sidewalk construction project, and it's funded by the state through a grant that I applied for through the Safe Routes to School program. There's a couple of active grants through the state's Safe Routes to School program actually that are targeted specifically to Lowell. You probably already know, but your superintendent for the Lowell School District, Johnny, is amazing. Out of all of the school districts in Lane County, he was the first and only one to raise his hand to participate as the pilot project for a new education program. And we have a Safe Routes to School coordinator for a Safe Routes to School education program now for rural Lane County. The metro area, Eugene Springfield, has had one in place for years, and students there have really benefited from the resources. And so we wanted to bring that to Lowell and other rural schools. And this photo is just an example of one of the activities that happened. This was in August in the city of Lowell, just this last summer during COVID. You can see everyone's wearing their masks. And the woman in the photo here to the far left, that's Cassidy Mills. And she's the Safe Routes to School coordinator. And she's just a delightful person. If you ever have questions, she would really be happy to make connections with you as well. She met up with Peace Health and they donated a bunch of helmets, like 80 bicycle helmets for kids. and she worked with your elementary school as part of their summer meals program and donated a bunch of helmets and helped kids with some fitting of the helmets and provided some educational flyers about how to be safe. So that's a big part of the Safe Routes to School program, is just providing kids with the tools and the education that they need to be safe. But a big part of it is we don't want to encourage our kids to be out walking and biking where it's not safe. I mean, no matter how safe they know how to use the system, if there isn't a sidewalk separating them from fast moving vehicle traffic, I mean, as a parent, you just don't want your kids walking to school. So the state prioritized funding infrastructure improvements, and that's the grant that we have that funded this project for sidewalk. We did ask for a bigger sidewalk construction project. We wanted to get North Shore, we wanted to get Moss Street, and we didn't get that application funded. It was too big of an ask. So we learned from that lesson, we regrouped, and we filed something that we thought would be a little bit more competitive, and we were successful. So we've got a small project, but I would just say it's just the start. I'm just going to keep hammering at that funding source because I just think the needs as well as the opportunities in Lowell are just immense. So just wanted to let you know kind of the big picture and what's on my radar for the city. So about this particular project, hopefully you can see on this map, the red areas are the proposed project that's in front of us today. What we're proposing to do is to construct sidewalks where there are none on West Boundary on both sides between Jasper Lowell Road, or within the city, what you call Pioneer Street, to North Shore Road. And the yellow circles, I don't know if you can see them very well on this map, but last summer, Lane County, with our own Lane County funds, we reconstructed some deficient ADA sidewalk ramps at the Main Street and Pioneer Street intersection. And then we constructed new ADA ramps and installed that pedestrian activated rapid flashing beacon to alert vehicles that someone wanted to cross the street, to slow people down and get them to stop and yield to pedestrians. And that was part of, Lane County has made a priority to install accessible transportation infrastructure where we've seen deficiencies. And so Lowell, we recognize that part of your population, I think, has a higher than countywide average disability rate. And so it was as a high priority for us. We also know that you've got the schools in the heart of your downtown. We know that you've got a library and city hall reconstruction project happening in that area. And we wanted to bring all of that together and really focus on some targeted improvements. So our grant application with the state competed really well because Lane County had invested some local dollars into some ADA upgrades last summer. And so next summer, unfortunately, we're not able to construct it this summer. The construction funding for the sidewalks doesn't come until next summer. But between now and then, our engineers are moving fast to prepare all of the design drawings, all of the paperwork required by the grant. And what I'm going to be doing, and what I'd like to get your input from today, is I want to be reaching out to you and other stakeholders and community members to hear what your interests are, what your concerns are. Hopefully everyone will be excited about the sidewalk, that we're not going to assess or charge abutting property owners for any part of the project. We're going to use the grant money to pay for all of this. I think potentially a point of controversy might be what we're proposing in the big red circle area, that big intersection that's so difficult for people to try to cross if you're walking, because we've got through big truck movements coming from the north, stopping, or not required to stop, but they can make that permissive left turn onto North Shore. And so it's a precarious situation for, especially if you imagine a little kid trying to cross that street. We don't have a perfect solution yet. Our traffic engineer is working on how to reduce the crossing distance and make that pedestrian crossing safer, especially for kids. And what I also want to say, just big picture about that intersection, I know from your downtown master plan that a roundabout was contemplated. The Safe Routes to School program said they would not fund a roundabout because it was that they were not certain that it would support pedestrian safety, because roundabouts enable a fluid movement of vehicle traffic. So everyone keeps going. And when you intersect with a pedestrian, you want traffic to come to a stop. However, more recent data has shown that roundabouts really do improve pedestrian safety because vehicles are moving so much slower that it enables the driver to see the pedestrian. And especially if you integrate those features where a pedestrian activates a beacon that flashes and brings people to a stop. And so the state has said in the future, as part of the Safe Routes to School program, they might indeed support funding a roundabout. So we don't have a perfect solution yet for this intersection, and we don't want it to be such a good solution that it would preclude our ability to get funding for a future roundabout, but we want to have an interim solution so that it's a safer than existing conditions in the meantime. And so some of the things our traffic engineers thinking about is some kind of raised concrete island for a pedestrian refuge area, potentially looking at a four-way stop. He's just not sure. He's doing a lot of investigation at this time. And again, I'd be really interested in hearing your feedback when I just have a couple more slides to give you an orientation, and then I'm really interested in hearing from you. Another element for you all to be aware of is the blue lines on this map show county jurisdiction. The yellow lines on this map show city jurisdiction. And so we know that we need to work with the city to make sure that whatever we're doing on your roads, Main Street is under your jurisdiction, and something where we're proposing to construct some reconstruct some damaged sidewalks. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in some upcoming slides, that we meet your expectations for what you want to see there. And so I'll be working really closely with Jeremy to make sure that we do the right thing there. So West Boundary Road, you're really familiar with these existing conditions. You don't need to see this photograph to be convinced that this is not a safe place to walk. Very narrow shoulders, quickly drops off to some kind of swale. And so this is an area where we are going to be constructing a setback sidewalk. So there'd be a little bit of physical separation with some kind of green space. And we're not entirely 100% on what that green space looks like, if it's level or if there's a slight depression to allow rainwater infiltration. But we're not thinking that we would plant street trees in that strip, but just to plant some seeds for you about some of the things that our engineers are talking about right now as they're starting to dive into this project. So Main Street, it already has sidewalks, but if you were in a mobility assistance device, you would have a really hard time navigating this sidewalk. They're in really bad condition. And so the grant includes reconstructing this sidewalk. So we'd be tearing this out, reconstructing it. We know that we'll need to work closely with the abutting property owners to let them know what the impacts are. And it will be annoying during summer construction. I mean, we'll be reconstructing any access driveway approaches, but our goal will be to minimize and mitigate any property impacts. We're not going to be, damaging houses or fences or major infrastructure. I think what we're going to need to really pay attention to is any utility relocates, and paying for that as part of our grant funding to just really try to minimize impacts on everyone. So the design concept at this point, again, just really high level. We haven't dived into it because we want to get feedback from you and from other community members, things that might help inform the design development process. But this plan shows in blue kind of some new concrete areas. So you can see, hopefully, what I've been calling a pork chop, but what our traffic engineers says is really more like a teardrop. And I said, well, that sounds sad. Can we call it a raindrop or something? But it's this little raised pedestrian refuge island right on the left leg of that major intersection. And the intent there is to reduce the crossing distance for someone trying to walk across that intersection without necessarily impeding the vehicle movements through that intersection. We know we need to accommodate the large trucks that have that sweeping radius is something our traffic engineer is looking at closely. And then on West Boundary Road, the blue shows the setback sidewalks, and then there's some kind of green vegetation to provide some kind of physical separation between the vehicle roadway area from where people are trying to walk. And we haven't yet detailed one of the street intersections. We're not sure if we're going to be constructing ADA ramps or just bringing the sidewalk in and merging it kind of as like a driveway apron approach, because there aren't sidewalks on that street for a full like curb ADA. But that's something our engineers are going to be looking at. And then on Main Street, it's trying to really stay within the existing footprint to try to minimize property impacts and just reconstruct the damaged sidewalk. So just putting in place kind of a curbside tight sidewalk. So our schedule is right now, our traffic engineers are doing the technical scoping, consulting, our survey staff, our utility coordinators, our stormwater and ADA experts to make sure that the designs meet all of the requirements. And then I'm going to be leading some public outreach. And again, interested in hearing from this body about potential stakeholders that I should be, like, who do I need to call? Who's going to be upset? Who do I need to, like, can I get in front of that and help understand what their concerns are and try to address those? That's what's happening right now. And our goal would be to resolve all of those issues that we've identified. And then this summer, hold a public hearing on the project before a citizen appointed Transportation Advisory Committee. That's a group that's appointed by the board. And then the board would approve the design concept. This particular project, it requires this intensive process. Lane County has a strong commitment towards public involvement and engagement in our projects, especially projects where we expand the footprint over existing conditions, because we want to make sure that we don't have adverse impacts on people with our well intentions. And so there's an intentional public process that includes a public hearing and the design going to the Board of County Commissioners for approval. So we're wanting to line that up by this summer. And we would be doing public notice of that to your community to let everyone know that they have an opportunity to be heard at that time. And then if all goes well there, then through the fall and the winter, our engineers would be drafting those drawings and design standards, getting the bid ready, getting the contract all set up, so that by spring, summer, we're ready to construct and ready to roll and get those sidewalks in place before school opens and kids go back to school. And that's my presentation for you today. And this is a child in the city of Lowell who at the summer program got a helmet, and here he is cruising away on his skateboard with his new helmet. And this just makes me so happy. So again, I'm happy to be here tonight and welcome any feedback or questions that you have.
Thank you. And Becky has been a real advocate for Lowell even before I was aware of it. Like I said, she was working with Johnny on this, and you know, the count. We don't as a city or town have a state highway, so we really rely on the county highway systems to support us. And it's been years since you know, we've existed a long time, but just in the last couple of years, Becky and the whole county transportation department has done a whole lot to support Lowell and start guiding our direction. So we really appreciate what she's done. And I just I asked her to go through Jeremy and come in tonight, but to let the rest of the council know exactly what Safe Routes to School was, who was involved with it, and what they were doing. Like I say, they went out and put this all together without us having to provide matching funds, which, you know, if that would have, we'd gone for matching funds out of, it stretched it out a few more years. So we really appreciate what she's done. Thank you, Becky. Any questions for her by anybody?
Do you anticipate the national infrastructure funding that's is being debated right now as being an influx of money to these programs to be able to facilitate larger scale projects like what you discussed earlier that we couldn't quite pull off in the grant requests?
I'm very hopeful, and I'm reading through the latest proposal right now. And what I can say is that I think it's very promising in terms of funding available for the types of infrastructure that addresses issues around equity, which is huge for Lowell. The Lowell School District, out of any school district in Lane County, has the highest percentage of children eligible for free and reduced lunches. So that's a significant equity concern. So I think Lowell is recognized as a high priority area for investments from an equity perspective. Also, there's a lot of discussion at the federal level about, in addition to equity, about climate change and needing to invest in infrastructure that provides more transportation options. And so if children are able to walk to school and not be driven to school, I think there will be more funding on the horizon for these types of projects.
Anyone else? Okay, not hearing or seeing one. Thank you, Becky. I enjoyed the presentation, and you have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next up is number 3, review proposed ordinance 303, an ordinance granting Douglas Services Incorporated, locally known as Douglas Fastnet, and non-exclusive franchise for construction, operation, and maintenance for a fiber optics telecommunications system. Now that was a sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To give some background on this item, in fall of 2019, Douglas Fastnet approached the city about negotiating a franchise agreement so that they could construct and operate fiber optic telecommunications system within the city right of way. In the late winter and spring, they drafted some franchise agreement language. They have recently approached me stating that they are nearing the process of beginning construction and requesting that we finalize this franchise agreement and ordinance. This has had city attorney review. The city attorney has approved and signed off on this, stating that it's just a basic, it's your standard franchise agreement. Also, the city would receive a fee as a result of this, as we do with any of our other franchise agreements. If this is agreeable to city council, the next step would be to put this on your regular April agenda meeting This would, for a first reading, this would require, as with any ordinance, 2 readings, and it would go into effect 30 days after the second reading. We do have 2 representatives from Douglas Fastnet on the meeting with us, if there are any questions for them.
All I gotta say is, I'm glad this is coming. I'm glad that we're getting closer to this. I know with the year of COVID, the school district went through a lot of issues where people with pads, tablets, whatever, but without the either computer access or high-speed access. So this is going to be a benefit. Plus, it's once it gets in, I think it will help draw businesses in here to just to provide the service they need. I guess the question I have is this going to be on power poles, underground? How's the system set up?
Good evening. My name is Todd Way. I'm the manager of Douglas Fastnet. And yes, it'll primarily be on power poles where there is room. If there's not room on the poles for height, then we'll have to underground those sections, but the majority will be on the poles.
Okay. We have a couple of water towers that overlooks a section of town. I think the city might allow you to put a pole there, hopefully. That's on my 2 cents. But the rest of it, I know, who was it, Emerald? I think they went with EPUD, and they put, or Lane, or I think it was EPUD, maybe Lane Electric, and they put their equipment on for West Fir and for Oak Ridge. So it's not uncommon what you're doing.
Yes, ours will be a true fiber network, fiber into the home versus a wireless connection.
Oh, you're actually going into the home with fiber?
Yes.
And for underground, you go through existing underground conduits to the home that way too also?
We'll place our own conduit in the right of way, and on the private property, if there's a conduit that the owner has that we can use, we'll use that if it goes where it needs to go.
I know some of our developments are underground already, so I didn't know if you're going to use pre-existing conduit.
Yeah, most likely not.
Does that burrow without cutting sidewalks and stuff like that?
Ideally, yes, we have a bore machine that should be able to do the work. It just depends what's underground there. If you hit hard rock, sometimes you just have to trench.
I look forward to it, and I think it's a good thing. Anybody else have any questions? I just, the other thing with franchises, it seemed like a franchise, we started working on it this year, and then we work it on a little bit next year and the following year, and about 4 or 5 years from now, we finally get it done. So it's, I'm impressed that we have one in front of us that the attorney likes, that has the possibility of being done in short order. So I do appreciate that. And I see that it is a 10-year franchise agreement. Okay, good. I like that. Anybody have any questions about this?
How long do you anticipate it will take to develop your infrastructure throughout the city?
We should be up and running by September. We've got to do some backbone work with LCOG to get the signal out from Eugene out to here. And then we just need to start construction. Fiber materials are getting harder to get, so we should have enough material on hand to start. If we had to order it fresh, I think we'd be 40 to 50 weeks now. So.
Good. Looking forward to it. Anyone else? Okay, thank you for attending our meeting tonight.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We look forward to doing business with you.
Yeah. Bye now. Okay. Number
Bye.
4, Review of scope of services from city engineer on water treatment plant tracer study. You want to explain that some, Mr. Caudle, and also present the presenter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will let Mr. Baker, our Public Works Director, talk about this. I think he could explain it better than me.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me fine? Apparently I'm in the dark here, I guess. So it's kind of have to go with the creepy look here. So yes, you have in front of you scope of services for a tracer study for the drinking water plant. A tracer study is a study that measures the amount of time that the water is in contact with chlorine before being pumped to the city. The last tracer study was done right before the upgrade in 2013. And a new flow rate was established and a new time set. The original flow rate was 155 gallons per minute. So what we're requesting here, what we'd like to do is to one, redo the existing test to prove that, you know, the numbers were correct and it is what it is. And then we'd also like to do a test at a little bit higher rate. This would be a seasonal CT contact time, so something we'd use between May and October. And we're projecting to do about 180 gallons per minute, which would be a 25 gallon per minute increase, which comes out to a significant money over a month, or not money, I'm sorry, gallons over a month's period of time. So about 29,000 gallons a day. So not a lot of water, but when you only produce 155 gallons per minute, 25 gallons is quite a bit. This is to help alleviate some of the stress demand that we have in the summertime. We currently have a pretty high demand. We have historically for the last 5 years. We're not having an issue making water. We just need to be able to have the capacity there should we need it. There's been about irrigating in the parks. Everybody's familiar with that. So that would obviously put a demand in it. The school currently irrigates off of city water. You know, and they keep theirs pretty nice and beautiful. So we're just going to try to keep up and see if we can get the state to approve a much higher flow rate. We have time in the last upgrades to the plant when they did baffling and they made some changes there. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. This scope of work you have in front of you just proves that we can meet those numbers. So it has a lot of calculations in there, and it's just a calculated thing we need to do. The reason the quote has 4 bid items on it, like I said before, we'd like to do repeat the existing CT study for one to prove that it is correct, or maybe some modifications. You know, it could be high, could be low. And then also 2 other user determined values. One of them being 180 gallons per minute, which the pumps are fully capable of doing. And then another one being a much lower rate. And that will give us a window when we're operating. In the wintertime, we typically run about 140 gallons per minute, just enough to keep up with demand and put a little bit in the reservoirs each night for fire protection. So in a perfect world, you know, we'd like to do all 3, but it's not necessary. So, but that's what we're coming with today. I'm sure there's questions on it. This is the first time I brought anything like this to you guys. So I'm ready for questions.
Anyone? Okay, I have a question. 155 gallons per minute. Is that what you're doing now or capable of doing?
So yeah, we're currently permitted at 155 gallons a minute. That's what we pull out of the lake there, treat, and then put back into the system for potable water.
I would not.
Number
I wouldn't
when you compare it to other cities. Say it again, Don.
I would not have imagined that you do that much water. I've seen the big vat of water that's brought in and it's going around in circles like that, and the little pipes and everything. It's, like I say, little pipes. And I would not have guessed that you were doing 155 gallons a minute. I had no idea, honestly. That's 3 50-gallon drums a minute. So
yeah, 155 that's very small. Actually, there's smaller water systems than us that produce up to 400 gallons a minute. It's run, you know, we run a slower rate, but for longer in the time period of the day, which helps absorb the heavy demands and peaks where other municipalities or water systems will produce a much higher gallons per minute, but maybe for a much shorter part of a day. So where we run the plant in the summertime, 18 to 22 hours a day, they might only run 6 to 7 hours a day and still meet the same demand. So, but you still use the same chemicals, you still have the same staff time. It's just a different way of running the system.
No,
So
no mechanical changes to the plant is needed.
This would be no changes to the plant. That's correct.
I think I cut you off, Sam.
You did. That's okay. So this is a required thing by Oregon Health Authority, and does it like a 10-year run, or because it looks like the last time it was done was 2013? Is there a schedule that is standard or what?
It's only required the initial time to
Oh,
calculate your minutes. But anytime you want to change it or slightly increase, you need to prove that you can still meet the federal drinking water laws. So there is no expiration on it once you're approved, unless something changes on the EPA or OHA side. You just continue to run with the approved,
okay.
the one that we received approval for. The test was done in 13. We received approval in 2014.
Okay.
So are they tracing the quality of the water? So as you increase the flows, you increase the chance of having an issue with water quality through the system. So they put a tracer into the system to make sure that with the increased flows, you're still keeping up your water quality standards.
So it's just called a tracer study. It's theoretical. And what we do is we don't actually put anything in the water. We use the existing chlorine feed. And what they're wanting to represent is the contact time in the clear well. So the amount of time that one drop enters, after treatment till it gets pumped into the system. We're fortunate enough to have the water plant be the first user. We are a metered connection there. We have facilities that my staff, myself use. So what we do is you set the plant at a set rate. We currently dose chlorine about 0.8 milligrams per liter. And then what they do is you make a significant increase into the chlorine dosage. So you almost double the dosage, and you measure the amount of time it takes for it from the beginning where we inject the chlorine to the end based on the set flow rate. What they do is, they're looking, the state bases everything on minutes. So they want to know how many minutes each drop of water is in contact with the disinfectant. I will tell you, based on the last tracer study, which you guys have a copy of, we're almost double what we're required to have. And the reason being is we have very long dead ends in the system. We have a long dead end that goes all the way out to state parks. It's not looped. We have a long dead end that goes all the way to the north side, on the east side, the south side. So the reason why we carry a little bit higher residual, well, we don't carry higher. That's pretty much the average, but you have to have a detectable amount at all locations in your system above 2. So at the time, the last tracer study, they opted to keep the residual at the 0.88, and they opted to use 66 minutes. They requested for the state to reapprove that. We're going to request, if everything goes through, we're going to request 3 different set values so that we can operate the plant seasonally. So if we don't run it for 10 hours a day, we'll run it for 10 hours a day. It'll give us different targets for chlorine so that, in the summertime, when the demand is much higher and the water's going through much faster, we don't have to use as much chlorine. It doesn't sit in the system long before it gets used by the first users. So it's kind of an operational thing, but it gives us a good target, and it gives us an excellent operational to take some advantage of the capacity that we still have currently at the plant. And then, the options after that would be to put more infrastructure into the distribution system to be able to hold more water produced. So, another reservoir or something along those lines. So for this price, we're getting 25 gallons per minute, which is a pretty good increase, about 16% increase in our production. Gallons per minute should, absorb some of the peak demand, especially with the gardening and irrigating that plans for. And then we've had a lot of beautiful yards go in the last year. A lot of people took advantage of the time off and improved their yards and put beautiful, which means they're going to be irrigating with city water. So there's going to be a little bit more of a demand there.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Next up is a presentation from Public Works Director Max Baker on the department updates, including digester blower purchase, green waste drop-off program, and backflow inspections with opt-in, opt-out program. Mr. Caldwell, do you want to introduce anything extra on this?
No, sir, I'll let Max take it away.
Hi, it's me again, obviously. So first topic, we'll just go through real quick. The digester blower. This has been a popular topic for the last couple of years. As you guys know, we had the actual rep for the company on site 2 years ago when we made the most recent purchase. And we've made significant changes to the operations of these. The blower that we currently have installed, which we purchased in 2019, is running flawless. Regular maintenance on it, still working very nice. So the intent behind this is to get the secondary backup, like we had talked about originally. They are expensive. They're about $5,900 just for the unit. But this, when I started here, we had 2 units. Neither one of them worked, but the plan was designed with 2 units. So one primary and then a secondary. So a lead lag that you rotate back and forth, and that's to keep wear and tear even. Most people, specifically Gail, remember what happened the last time the blower went out. This is a very important piece of equipment. Yes, it keeps the odor down. It is the digester process. So this is how we get rid of the solids. So we keep them mixed up and keep them going and let the, atmosphere and everything do their natural process. And then we get rid of the solids. So we spent a lot of time with engineering and professionals from all over the United States that came out, actually to little town of Lowell, which is amazing. We found out some operational changes to make that were recommended. We've made all those changes, from the air filters to temperature control in the room and to the way we physically run the pumps. So the blower that I'm waiting for the quote for still, which we'll bring to the next city council meeting, is from the original blowers that were installed. They do not have the requirement that they have to be installed by a professional like the last ones did. They will still honor the 1-year warranty. And you do not have to buy the special oil, which is very expensive. So I think it's going to be a good option. We're eager to see what the quote's going to be and get the process moving forward. Any
Wasn't
questions?
that the problem with the one that failed? Was the oil was low, something like, wasn't it an oil problem?
So a couple, 2 things added up on the failure of the previous blower, the one before I got here. It was a sleeve shaft instead of a keyed shaft. So the blowers were set to alternate on their own every 4 hours. So they come on, they come off. They're very high spinning, very fast moving. So every time it got its little start stop like that, this pulley would rotate on the shaft. And once that happened and the teeth got off, just wear each other out. The tolerances on these are very, very fine. They pass each other so fast that they create suction. So once that gets wore down, they're ineffective. And then you have the gears banging together and stuff like that. So it was a bunch of things, lack of maintenance, but also just mechanical failure on poor design. So the one that the quote coming for is a keyed shaft. So whether you start and stop it all day, sit there, the bearing, which makes the part move, cannot move on it. So the lobes continue to stay lined up. Same warranty, identical unit, just a different manufacturer. So.
I think you had a question, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions before we move on to the next one?
That sounds good. Thank you. You go on.
Okay, green waste drop off. This is more of just an open discussion and kind of an update on how this process is going. This has been a couple years now. So I think it's a good time to recap. We're well out of the snowstorm. So you can see the program, in its natural environment, what it was intended to be. As you guys all know, we started a green waste facility by a recommendation of the Parks Committee. And it was in 2018, which we started. It was intended to be the last Saturday of the month from a set time. Residents were allowed to bring down qualified materials. Everybody knows what we do down there. And then the intent was for staff to tip the usable materials and then redistribute back to the public free of no charge. Then the snowstorm hit and we got overwhelmed. The entire city was overwhelmed. We chose to keep the green waste open indefinitely for about a 2-month period. We got an immense amount of materials. Staff did take the 6 weeks it took to chip all of it and come out with 210 cubic yards of wood chips, which is just a mountain of wood chips. And we've had 2 residents pick wood chips up since its conception, and the school has taken about 20 cubic yards. They did the new greenhouses. So now we just have a large decomposing pile of wood chips. So more of just a general discussion for brainstorming and ideas. The CA and myself went back and forth. One thing, of course, we're going to make clear is that it is a program that is for the Lowell residents and Lowell residents only. We've had a lot of people from the surrounding areas that have participated in this over the years. And then open to some ideas. It's a huge time consumer for myself and staff. And it's, equipment rental, the cost, I think has gone well beyond what we ever anticipated it would be. We do enjoy the participation part of it. We like to be able to have that available to the public. But I think it's just became much more than anybody ever thought it was going to be. So my staff, myself, and CA have been bouncing some ideas about, maybe getting a green waste dumpster that we permanently leave there. We hold the event, we load it up, we haul it off. Just kind of looking for different options. I will say we've also contemplating eliminating the program altogether, at least on my side of things. So just kind of want to open up for roundtable discussion. If anybody had ideas or recommendations or questions regarding to it, maybe I can answer some questions better. What's your guys' thoughts on it?
Yes, Gail.
I just wondered is there any way that it would help if we had any volunteers in the city to help run it or work on it on the weekends? I don't know if that's even feasible or if there's any liability or what, but and if we just need to eliminate it because it's too much work, that's understandable. I just didn't know if there was any way we could help staff it, in a different way.
Right. So we did discuss volunteers, CA and myself. Obviously not right now because of the pandemic. We want to keep the numbers down there. Currently, my staff and myself are not helping people unload. Typically, we've always helped people in the past unload their loads. Do what we can to keep people moving out. Obviously, it's a lot more popular in this time of year as people get out and do yard work and want to get ready for vegetation. So we've discussed. And I'm sure there would be people interested in helping. And it's not necessarily just that the Saturday that we do. We actually opened to appointments by calling City Hall. And what it turned into is, 11 to 12 calls a week. And it's pretty hard, to sit there and turn somebody away when they're already down there with their trailer. Nobody's going to want somebody to turn around. Well, you can't turn around without going in the sewer plant down there. Soft spot, we might be in the middle doing something, so. We did put an article on the bridge. I'm sure everybody's seen that, that until further notice, it's going to be the last Saturday only, like it was intended. And please provide a utility bill. I right before I left for my family issues, there was people there that I actually went out to talk to, and I realized they weren't even residents. So we put an immediate stop to that. But yeah, we just need to maybe revamp it if it's something that we would consider maintaining or keeping. I do believe it's a good program. I just think it needs a little bit of work if it's something that we consider continuing. Look at the budget. It is a significant amount of money, specifically with the COVID stuff. We did get reimbursed for a small portion of that with the FEMA money, but other than that, it's been on city budget since then. So.
And would curtailing it back again and literally saying one day a month, would that make a difference in that?
So, I went back and forth, and the only issue I see with that is, right now we're currently holding it from 10 to 12 on the last Saturday. The only thing I can see is, just being the immense amount of people on that last Saturday. Currently, we staff it with the Saturday operator, which is one person. People are pretty orderly, but if it gets too far up the hill, you're blocking people's driveways, you're blocking the school for sporting events. I could just see it turning into, maybe not a fiasco, but just maybe a little bit of chaos, it may be overwhelming. The person currently who works Saturdays, they're doing this in between their other duties, so we don't got a lot to do on the weekends, but, we still have the mandatory requirements to do. So
even if I thought that even if you narrowed it to a certain day, it's just going to pile up on that day. So
right. And that's kind of what we were afraid of. We just had it this last Saturday, and we had well over 30 people. Or 30 loads, not 30 people, but 30. I mean, that's a pretty good number, you know, in a small
lot of stuff too. Yeah.
yeah, and it was a little more than 2 of our dump trailers of material. So it was quite a bit of material, you know, what is that? 11, 20 to about 30 yards. So that's quite a bit, 30 yards compressed material. So yeah, we just wanted to bring it up, kind of get the ball moving. I'm still working on stuff currently. CA went back and forth a few things. I have reached out to a few of the Parks Committee members and then also my staff individually, just to see if, you know, there's something we could do to make it better. And obviously, if it's something we do continue to do, we would definitely need to increase the budget under that line item significantly. So.
Well, the biggest part of these people with pickup trucks that they could drive into Lane Products if we were to cut it back, curtail it or whatever, or are they people with big bags and stuff like that?
Most everybody, there, one person specifically, I can remember off the top of my head, but most everybody has a truck or a trailer. Yeah. But, you know, and I'm not suggesting we eliminate it. I'm just getting it open for discussion and just seeing, you know, I think it's an excellent program to offer. You know, Crestwell offers a similar program, but they have a facility specifically designed for that. So I just want to, you know, kind of make the best of this. I like providing the service to the citizens. I think it's an excellent way to help out. I forgot to mention, you know, this kind of came about because we adopted the LRAPA rules and we made a little bit tighter window on our burn restrictions, not a burn ban. You know, we made a little bit more strict on open burning and you know, burning your materials in town. So I think that was the initial intent behind it.
Exactly. And we don't want to go back to people burning everything in their backyards to save $5 in town, you know, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tim had a question there.
Well, go ahead, Tim.
So I'm not sure about this, but I was talking to somebody the other day. You know, we have similar situations at work where we create gigantic volumes of wood debris, and then we have to deal with this wood debris in various manners, either get dumpsters from Lane Forest Products, bring in drum shippers to deal with it. And somebody actually brought up that people have tended to go towards this chipping thing. And in actuality, they're starting to show studies that the methane gas production from chipping and decomposition of wood actually produces greater issues with pollution than burning does. So I think this may be something to where, you know, maybe we're starting to figure this out. You know, burning's bad, let's chip, it's the way to go. But maybe we're starting to find out that that wasn't, you know, like we often do. We think we're going in the right direction. We actually find out we're heading in the wrong direction. So I would say that some reevaluation and seeing if there's anything we can find, you know, and obviously working back through LRAPA is going to be part of this. But, you know, this big push to get people away from burning, and then now we're chipping 210 cubic yards of you know, woody debris in the city of Lowell, and it's sitting there decomposing and releasing methane gas. Maybe that's not the way to go.
I agree.
Okay.
I definitely think we need to look at all the options and all the, you know, pros and cons of each option. So if we're going for the, you know, carbon footprint / green, and yeah, I seen very similar studies on that. You know, you're running the equipment and you're running the decomposition pile there, and especially in a small segregated area like that, you know, so it just literally stays right here in town. So.
And the other issue is, I believe, Max, that a large part of the labor and the budgetary stuff is renting the chipper and actually processing the debris through the chipper. It's not necessarily the loading part. And if there was either a change made to go back to burning the stuff and having a city burn pile down there, that really the money and cost in would be decreased by that choice.
Right. Yeah, I think we should look at all options. I really do. Yeah, there was a huge burn pile when I started here, a pretty significant burn pile.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very sure on the law, so I got in trouble by LRAPA when we let it off. So, but I got educated very quick.
Bring back some numbers and things like that to the council so we can see what the costs are, what if Lane Products would bring a a bin out here for us to throw everything in, what it would cost to dig a hole in the ground to put it in, kind of like the recycle centers, if that's a direction that you're even considering. But we need to have probably some numbers of some sort.
Right now, 30-yard load bins about $600 a piece.
And that probably doesn't take long to fill.
No, not at all.
So I will tell you guys, not this last time, but the time before, we did not pay any roll off or tip down fees. We only paid for the materials by Lane Forest. So it was still an astronomical cost just because there was so much. But you know, every time they come out here, just to drop one's 112 and then to pick it back up, and their rates just went up. So that was a pretty significant cost saving. It's 21 dumpsters, just to give you guys an idea how many loads we took years ago. And we've already taken 7 out this year. I'm sorry, not this year, but you know, the end of fall last year. So, which had a cost with it appropriately. So yeah, we're working with Lane Forest currently, and also with Sanipack. Sanipack offers green waste dumpsters. Actually, it's something that come up in the discussion of the franchise originally with the former city administrator and the person working on the franchise to provide the dumpsters for the parks cleanups days that we historically have held outside of COVID, and then also a permanent green waste dumpster down there. So yeah, we'll bring some ideas and some costs and possibly some recommendations back on the next meeting.
Okay.
That work for you guys?
That works perfectly for me. Anybody else?
You good with that, Jeremy?
Yes.
Okay, and this one's just a brief update on this. We will be bringing this to you guys possibly for some action on the next council meeting. So I just wanted to make sure we brought it up again. The back opt-in, opt-out program for the cross connection. I brought this up 2 meetings ago. We kind of had a lot last month, so we kind of tabled it just temporarily. I was actually working on the annual plan and wrapping up getting the entire city tested. So just real brief, the backflow opt-in, opt-out program is a program the city would offer to the residents who currently have backflow prevention devices. Typically, this is people with underground sprinklers, maybe some of the people that have in-ground pools, and then pretty much every business and non-residential facility in town has them. So the city and the school has 12. So there's a lot of them in the system for only having 451 connections. We have 57 backflow prevention devices. They are required by the state to be tested once every 365 days. So not, you know, the July of every day, every 365 days. It's kind of something that homeowners just kind of forget about. So since I've been here, we have sent a reminder letter, and then we send another reminder letter. And then pretty much what it gets down to is we use the full extent of code at the end of the year, and the city staff orders the tests, gets them performed, and puts it on the utility bill. It has been like that the entire, since 2014 I've been here. So this would be a program just to kind of streamline the process if people were interested. We did kind of do just a real broad reach out the last time that we brought this, and I'm not referring to the last meeting, but last year. And we did not have a single person that said they would not be interested in the program. So just to give you guys an idea, I think it would be a good program. And it's just that they can agree to the program. They could exit the program at any time they want. But if they did agree to the program, city would obviously take care of scheduling their test, getting it performed, submitting all the paperwork, and it would just be kind of something taken off of the citizens' minds. But it would still satisfy a requirement with the state. So it's a state requirement that the city has to enforce. So we bring in something to you guys at next council meeting, possibly for some action. So
the billing that you get, since it's by volume, whatever, is much cheaper than what the basic resident goes out and can get, right? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, so typically in the last 7 years since I've been doing it, we have used 4 different people at random. As a matter of fact, the last 2 years we used the same person, and the reason why is they both times reached out to us. They provided the service at a very fair rate. And it ranges. If one person was just to individually call somebody and they drove from in town out here, it could be anywhere from $50 to $100 to perform the test. When you have them on site already, they kind of can split that destination cost over, 10 or 12 or 15 of the tests. I will tell you that for all the tests we did last year, except for the large ones, so 2 inches or larger, it was $35 a test. If your neighbors have backflows, you can ask them. $35 is a pretty dang good deal. So yeah, usually typically what happens is we would get a bulk price, and obviously we would, call more than just the one person. It's even if the city was to take care of all 57, it's not a cost that's very high. The last bill that the city received was just under $2,000, and that was to test every device, including city devices. So the city appropriately paid for theirs, and the rest was passed on to the consumer on the utility bill.
I think if you're talking $35, $45 or something like that, I know in the past we said the city just pass it on with no extra charge. I think that a $10 admin fee or something like that would not cause people to say, I think I'll go do it myself. And that's for the home site. The ones like 2-inch, maybe $20 or something like that. But I don't think the city should bear the full brunt of the expense of this. If you have people that's having to call, coordinate and everything like that, seem like $10 to do that would not be out of line. It would help cover the expense of what you're doing, Joyce is doing, the city's having to do. So I think that if there's some sort of adder fee that for admin, I think that in my mind would be appropriate. I don't know about the rest of the council.
So one thing I did mention last time I brought this up, and I forgot to mention again, is we did purchase the module through Cassell, which is an extension of the water system, which tracks backflow devices. So that is one way to help streamline a little bit, take a little bit of the burden of the paperwork out from city staff. But right, it doesn't eliminate everything, Dawn. So there is going to be, the initial call and the scheduling. And it's something we can look at. The intent behind it was the tests actually change a little bit because the equipment used is very specific. It's required to be tested every year. So, it has gone up twice in the 7 years I've worked here, what the average price that people charge was. So we were possibly thinking about putting it to your guys' utility schedule that we adopt with the budget, if this is something we decide to go through with. So we would just set the fee to be adopted by resolution. So that, maybe this first year, if it's something we do, we can kind of see how it goes and it go appropriate from there. The other thing is the intent is to get a staff member certified to do this. And then of course, buy the equipment and all the process. It will be an additional certification. It's a very intensive 3-day class, and it has an annual refresher that's also 3 days. Both current staff have showed interest in wanting to do the program. So that's also something we could do later on. We could do it in-house, and then, maybe just charge enough to cover labor for that day and maybe the equipment. So, we could even pass this to the consumers at even a reduced rate and still cover the time and materials that we would be spending on it. So it's something to look at and just definitely see what happens. You guys know, as the city grows, almost everybody wants a nice yard. All the homes that have been built since I've been here, with the exception of a few, have got irrigated yards in them. So I'm guessing as that continues to go on, the amount of backflows in the system will definitely increase.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would be too upset for a $10 admin fee to take care of all that for them so that they never have to look at it again. So
right.
Yeah, because I enjoy it, Max. You call me and it's done.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm lazy.
So,
Anybody else have thoughts? Okay.
Max and I are collaborating on drafting a resolution to formally establish this program for consideration and approval by City Council, and that's pretty much what you all are waiting on right now.
Okay. We'll have it at the end of the month, you think, or?
That is the goal.
Okay, if not next month, but sooner the better. Yeah. That way, take the pressure off the residents, Okay. So we're coming to the end of the work session. We adjourn. Let's know the City Council will now meet in executive session for the purpose of conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transaction pursuant to ORS 1992662E. This is something we haven't normally read or said to you, but this is something that's always existed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff and other persons shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decisions will be made in the executive session and will only be discussing the items that was listed in the initial comment. Okay. We will not be re-meeting or whatever. We will adjourn out of the executive session when it is over. Okay. With that being said, we're adjourned at 8:35. Do you need to start the machine or we just keep on going?
I'm going to stop recording since we are out of the work session.